All right, it is 7:49 p.m. on August the 19th. We have a whole new project coming for you. Not a greenhouse, not a stanchion, actually nothing quite that large, but a little more complicated. So I got a friend at work, and he asked me if there was a way that I could build him a habitat base or stand. And I'll insert a picture of what I'm talking about. Kind of looks like this. Anyway, so it's an octagon. I've never done anything in an octagon before. Usually I'm pretty straightforward. It's a square, a rectangle, and maybe even a triangle. But I've never done an octagon. So I've done a little research, a few different videos that I've watched, a few different things that I've read through, and you've got to have a 22.5-degree angle in order to do an octagon. Okay, sounds easy enough. So I've played with my table saw, and I've tried to cut up a few different things to come up with this 22.5-degree angle. See? So I took and cut what I thought was going to be a 22.5-degree angle on this. But whenever I put it together, I had a gap where it didn't all come together in 8 pieces. Because an octagon is 8 pieces. So then I tried again, and I tried again. Oh, and then I tried again. And I continued to fail miserably. So then I tried one more time. Wait, before I do this, I'll show you what I used to do it. Tried one more time to get the octagon. Now that's pretty close. I didn't tape it very tight with my tape, but that's really, really close. But you can see when I hold it together, almost all gaps go away. It's pretty tight, minus this one little section right here. Now that bothers me. He's like, oh, that looks good. But whenever you've got that going on, a 30-inch piece, if you've got a gap going all the way down, it's going to make it a pain. So I'm gonna try to tighten it up a little bit more. You'll get to see how I do that later. But the tool I used to get my table saw is this digital protractor from Husky. And basically what it does is when you press the button, you get it at your 90. Sorry, I guess it should be loosening it up so that it turns a little bit easier in my hands. Anyway, whenever you get it at, say, your 90, you zero it out, and then you take it to 22.5, and then you line your table saw up to it, blade-wise. And you end up with your 22.5-degree cut. Just like I said though, still slightly off. I want it to be tight knit. If a friend of mine's gonna ask me to build him something, or anyone's gonna ask me to build him something, I want it to be worth their time. And besides, like I said from the word go, I'm here to have fun with DIY projects, and I am here to learn and to grow and to kind of point out that anyone can try these things. You don't have to have a table saw. You don't have to have a bunch of specialty tools, because I don't have a bunch of specialty tools. I do have a table saw, I do have a planer, and I did finally get my bandsaw set up, which I've had sitting in my building for over a year, and you can see it right, how would you do that on there? Right over there. Anyway, it's a Rikon 14-inch bandsaw, but right now we gotta get rolling, because like I said, I don't have a whole lot of time, and my time is running out because everyone will be home in like less than an hour. So let's take you for a trip. This is the material we are going to be using. It is cedar, or what some people refer to as aromatic cedar. But this is the type of wood that my friend requested. He wanted a cedar base, and that is what we're going to make it out of. So we got to do some milling, we got to do some cutting. Actually, we're going to do some cutting, and then we're going to do some milling. So we want to go for a base that is roughly about 30 inches tall. So we're going to take this and cut it into 14 pieces that are roughly 29.5 inches long. We are going to grab the wood, we're going to cut it into its sections, I will most likely insert my plan that I've kind of wrote out for myself in this spot. And now you can see what I have planned to do. Time to get rolling. All right, so my little planter is all set up. We're ready to rock and roll. I have went ahead and made sure that my fence is square at a 90. So when we're running a board across this, what it's going to do is push our guard open, and you want your pressure to stay on the outfeed table. This way it just takes off what it has to. Also, look at your board, see my knots? Probably not necessarily the best direction to go on this side, though it may be fine. You do want to try and look at the grain pattern, see which way the grain is going. If it's going this way, go this way on the table. If it's going this way, flip your board over, go with the grain. It helps to solve the tear out issue. Once again, I'm not a joiner professional. I get this information from other people who are way smarter than me and who have been using it for way longer than I have. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to join some boards, and then we're going to try and square them all up. One more quick note. So whenever you're going to run your board across the jointer, do yourself a favor. Put some marks across it so you can tell what's left whenever you run it across it. You can tell what's been taken off, where your high spots are, where your low spots are. Now we're going to square up one side to the other. To do that, we're going to take the side that we just jointed, that's nice and flat, we're going to put it up against the fence, holding pressure against the fence and down on the outfeed side so that we can square up one side to the back side so that we can use the table saw for the other side and the thickness planer for the top or bottom or whichever way you end up turning the piece. But that's what we're going to do now. A little bit more left. Sorry, there was a beat. I think that'll do. Let's check. So this is our flat side that we did. This is our flat side. Now, hold your square up on it. See if I can get this to where that you might be able to see. See that? Perfectly square. From front to back. That's what we want. Now, only a lot more to go. See you in a minute. Going through planing our boards down so we get to 3/4 of an inch. To measure that, we're going to use calipers, digital calipers.
Look at me, I am covered.
Sebastian's doing a great job of being sturdy. So what we are going to do, see if we can get this landing. Not upside down though. Most people don't want to look upside down. So let's go for this one. I'm gonna open this up.
So let me see. Let's see.
It's really hard doing it that way.
0.83.
0.83, and we're going for 0.75. So we're gonna keep planing down our You're planing down until we get there. Let's keep going. That would be called snipe, except for it's not truly snipe. This is where my craftsman just died. And so I got to try to get the Rikon over here to pick up where my craftsman left off. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to apply pressure till I'm right here on the front of that, so that as I slide across, hopefully I will pick up right where it left off.
Grease.
It is all lubricated up and ready to rock and roll. So I can see my dip right there. My first push, I'm gonna back up. We're gonna turn it on. Safety glasses are on. All right, now that we have jointed, and planed down to 3/4 of an inch on each one of these boards, now we're going to rip them to be straight on each side. This is the side we've got to take off. We want to leave as much meat to it as we can so we have working space. Safety glasses on, pencil out of your ear. We're going to hold our board firm up against here and roll right through the edge of it. Stay firm against it, smooth cut, no reason to rush. But before I
start that, we're going to start our handy dandy vacuum that we'll plug into the back of the saw to eliminate as much dust as possible.
We're going to finish up, start glue up. We'll catch back up with you. So we are prepping for glue up. And the first thing that we do is lay out our 2 bottom clamps at roughly the distance that we will need open for the first glue up. Alright, so once our glue up is complete and dried, we're looking pretty good, but we got to clean up the bottom side. We've got to get the glue up. And so for that, I just say,
Just chisel off.
Use a little chisel. We're going to start off with standard 80 grit. Get it broke down just a little bit. Remember, this isn't for final sanding. This is just to get the glue off, make sure all of our lines are flush and straight. And then we're going to move to a 120. So we're going to roll with that. Put it on, match up our holes so that our dust ends up in the bag and not in our face. It is sanding time, and we are going to start off sanding with an 80 grit to 120 grit to a 220 grit. And in order to kind of make sure that we do evenly, we're going to go at this. We're going to take a pencil and mark across the whole thing, trying to make sure that we hit every spot of it sanding wise. And I'm not going to take you through watching me actually go sanding, but here's the pattern or method that I'm going to use. I've clamped 2 blocks just to hold my piece in place. I don't have any silicone mats or cool holders or anything of that nature. But what we're going to do is take our sander and turn it on and go slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're just going to work our way all the way down the board slowly. Then whenever we get to the top, or whatever you want to call it, we're going to keep going and come all the way back, okay? Slow patterns. Once we get back here, then we're going to do long strokes, and we're going to go all the way to the other side. Go long strokes till we get back to this side, all the way across, multiple times till our pencil marks are completely gone and you cannot fill anything. Okay, so there are a few spots that I did go back and I poured a little more of the epoxy and I'm going to sand it down. But before I do, I'm going to go ahead and rip all my panels down to 9 1/4, which gives me plenty of space. Plenty of space to make my 9-inch pieces into the Octagon. So whenever we are cutting or ripping anything, instead of a cross cut, which would be turning it sideways and going across the grain, when we're ripping, always make sure that your blade is just barely above your workpiece. So we just want barely coming up above the workpiece, not by much, and that just helps your cut to stay rolling and going smoothly. And we're left with a 1x4. Don't know what I'll use that for, but I promise you we'll use it for something. Stack all 4 of our pieces over here. We still got to go back and do sanding on the epoxy side of things. We need to do a little sanding there and get it down. And it's going pretty quick, so it's not, I mean, we've been out here for about 15 minutes. We got 3 boards done to that point. We'll just keep going, right?
Right.
Okay, so still got a lot of sanding to do. And I'm about to try and get on that. Like always, I don't have a whole lot of time. So I'm not gonna be out here long, just decided to take a few minutes to get some stuff rolling and going. My real reason for wanting to come out here is because I'm slightly excited. I bought a tripod to hold the phone. And I've got you low now because I'm going to be working right here on the tabletop, on my saw top, doing the sanding. But I also invested in a microphone. So half of this video, the first half of this video, will have no microphone involved, and the second half of this video will have the microphone involved. And I'm really kind of hoping that the mic is working now. It shows to be paired. I guess I'll find out whenever it comes time for editing and stuff. But we're gonna see how well the mic works while I'm sanding. So I'm not gonna mute anything or put music over it to begin with. I'm gonna see if it'll actually pick up and go. So where we are in the sanding process is we are on the 120 grit, and I still have 3 boards left. Then we are going to go to our 220 grit. Then we're going to spritz with water, lift up the grains, hit it again lightly with a 240, and that should be enough for now for us to start cutting our octagons. So let's get started. All nice and pretty. Gonna go to our 220. There's much better sandpaper out there than this. And I do have some, but I bought it for epoxy, so I'm kind of holding it for that purpose. We're now on to the 240 grid. I've already cleaned off my machine, made it nice and pretty. But right now, we're gonna spritz with water so that we can get the grain to pop, that it'll stand up and we can sand it down so that there won't be any stand up on it whenever we go to put the finish on it, or grain popping whenever we put the finish on it. But some of the fun part about, let me do this over here so I don't get everything soaking wet. Some of the fun part of getting to spray and grain pop, and I'm gonna do this one a little overkill right now, but some of the fun in it, if I'll get to the point, Justin, come on, is that you get a little bit of a glimpse of what it will look like, sort of, whenever it is finished. And that is a very beautiful piece of wood. That is quite gorgeous, actually. Really nice. I mean, look at that. The black epoxy. And listen, I didn't come up with the black epoxy myself. The black epoxy, I learned that from John Malecki. I want to do the shout outs to the guys that I've actually watched this and learned this from. John Malecki, who's also on YouTube. Oh boy. BLACKTAIL Studios. BOURBON MOTH. These guys are way superior to me. And I've watched lots of their videos, learning things. As a matter of fact, their videos are the ones that inspired me to even take off on stuff like this. Build this, fix that, or fix this, build that, whichever way it is. The Wood Whisperer, all great people that if you're into this stuff, check them out for sure. If I can figure out how to do it, because I'm still too new to YouTube, I may link some of their stuff in the section below, so you can click down there and check those guys out if you don't already know who they are, because they do really great work. So I told y'all I wasn't going to be out here long tonight, and I'm not. I will sand this one because I've already spritzed it. It's drying up pretty decent, and then the rest will have to wait, because I'm not gonna be out here for that long, right? I think any of us that do woodworking, or pretty much any project and actually enjoy doing it, know that we say we're not gonna be out here for that long. We're not gonna be there that long. We're not gonna work on it that long. And we end up working on it that long. So, I'm shutting you off. I'm staying in one board. Alright, so tonight, we're going to straighten up both of our ends. So I set my stop block at 29. We need to be 28 and a half straight up. So at 29, that leaves me another ½ inch to straighten the other side up. Make sure that we are all straight and square. So we're going to use the miter saw, trim up each piece, make sure that we get everything the way we want it to be. Just for the record, I used to never wear eye protection, and so remembering to get these is difficult for me, but I'm trying to make sure that I set the proper example. Make sure that we're flat up against it, turn on our air, and then cut. Now that we've got them all trimmed that away, we're going to set our block at 28 and a half. This is exactly where we need to be. Now if you saw me a while ago flip-flopping these and looking at the edges, it's because I wrote fence on one side so that I'd know where I was going. And then I rotated them to know that this is the side that I just cut. And I just flip it back to the same fence side and keep my cut side against the block. 8 more going. Now that's on my hip, that was nice. Now that we've got every one of those cut to length, now we have to put our bevel down every single one of these so we can put it together as an octagon. The scary part, because if you mess it up, you got a lot of beveled ends that don't make an octagon out of wood that cost you money. So I'm gonna move you over to the table saw. Now I put a video on my channel on how to find your 22.5 degree angle, and I made a faux, well not a faux, I mean it's a real octagon. I bought a piece of pine from Home Depot or Lowe's, and I'm unplugged just so you know, but I bought a piece of pine that was 9¼ inches wide by 6 foot long, and I put together an octagon to make sure that my angles were going to come together. Now, there's a whole video on my channel that shows me setting up my saw and shows me doing everything that I did. There we go. That is a 22.5 degree angle. Now, we lower our blade. What we want to do is get our board that we're going to be cutting, drop our blade literally to the very top. I mean where you can rub your finger across it and it's the same height. And the reason for that is because at the angle that it's at, for me to make sure that I'm going to get the right distance in my cut, I need to make my fence go to the inside of the blade at the 9-inch cut that I need cut. I need to get that out of the way. So I'm going to hold it against my fence. Get it right to 9 inches. Scary part, cutting boards for an octagon. Once our blade is set at the height of the wood, we're going to roll it up just a little bit above the wood. Not a lot, just enough to make sure that we're good. So whenever we cut with our angle this way, when we cut, it's cutting into the board this way. So whatever's on this face of it is your inside. So make sure the piece that you want showing is up. Your first cut's gonna give you your bevel on one side. Whenever you turn it around to cut the other side, you have to make sure that your front is still facing up, which will put this angle, the longer side of it, up on your fence, which also gives you the ability to firmly go at it, because if your fence has a gap at the bottom, I've taken care of that because I put a sacrificial board there, but if your fence has a gap at the bottom, it could go under your fence and you won't get a straight cut. You can see this, it's starting to get dark out there. Your board should have your angles like so. You cut all 8 boards that way and then hope they go together as well. We have a bunch of boards cut that have 22.5 degree angles on them. And if all works well, it should make for an octagon. Blue tape is what we're going to use, painter's tape. All right, to make this work, I had to enlist some recruits. So Welcome back, Sebastian, to the video. Put in
Later.
comments how much you love Sebastian and his wonderful work, face, and attitude. Sebastian, do you mind coming and holding that board right there just like that? And I also have Landon as a recruit tonight. There. We'll come back maybe tomorrow night if I have time and glue it all up. Mike says it's hot, so we're gonna go for this. We're gonna go, we did a dry fit on everything, kind of put it all together, make sure that it's solid. We are going to tape everything together, then unfold it, put glue in the seams, and hope that we can strap it all together, get all our seams nice and tight the way I had it in the dry fit. We're just gonna start taping up seams. And I think because it's so large, I'm gonna do it multiple ways. I'm gonna put a piece of tape from bottom to top right on the seam first. My only fear in this is not being able to see where a seam is or is not lining up whenever I'm doing this. We're gonna put a few because it's gonna be a lot of weight on each one of these angles. I've left this joint undone because that's where I originally started and stopped the first time when I did the dry fit, so I think it'll make it easier whenever I go to undo the tape. Work our way around the glue squeeze out, cleaning up for multiple reasons. One, it allows me to be able to see better my seam. Two, we won't have as much to sand down whenever we're done. Cut and insert to go into the bottom. The bottom is going to have pieces that come up about an inch higher than where it is right now, setting it off the ground about an inch higher because it's going to have a total height of 30 to 32 inches. I'm going for 30, I believe, is what I have marked out in my scenario. So I'm going to insert this in, put some glue around the edges. Not that it really needs it. I'm going to pin nail it so that it doesn't go anywhere. This realistically is nothing but structural, just to ensure that if it's moved around, it's not gonna end up snapping apart in any way whatsoever. And there's my ums again. Gotta love those ums. So we're just gonna put a small bead of glue. The glue has been drying for probably about 30 or 40 minutes. My watch is about to die. But we can flip it over, put the top on it, and start preparing for all of our molding. Then a finish. Well, some sanding and then a finish. Bye.